What time is it? It's Mr. Pickles time, yeah! It is time. All the time. Well, today, we're going to do a little different of a video. I'm going to call this the instructional, quote-unquote, instructional video. For why I do what I do with Mr. Pickles. Because he's so cute. But the reason is because I was on a Facebook forum, which I don't really get. I go on the Mr. Pickles forum on Facebook. But I really don't go on to too many different frog forums. Seems like some people just want to argue all the time. It's like, I don't feel like arguing. But someone lost their pixie frog, and it was about a year old. And so, I mean, you know, that first year's a lot of work to just all of a sudden lose your frog to no reason, you know, for no apparent reason. I call it sudden death syndrome because it happens to so many people with African bullfrogs. It's like, frog's doing fine, all of a sudden, boom. And it's devastating. And my heart just went out to this person. I'm just like, man, that's, you know. So we got into, you know, possible what could be going on. And I'll give you a little backstory. I had done the horn frogs, the Pac-Man frogs. I had done those for years. I love Pac-Man frogs because they come in so many cool colors. I mean, they're just like, dude. And about 10 years before I got Mr. Pickles, I got a little small African bullfrog with, you know, a baby. And I had bought two baby Pac-Man frogs at the same time because why not? And I raised them all in separate containers, but I had, you know, separate enclosures, but I raised them just like I would a horn frog, which I had those for years. So, you know, a baby horn frog can be fed like once every 5 days, and they're pretty easy considering. But I lost my African bullfrog. Didn't know why. Talking to people, and they're like, yeah, African bullfrogs, they can just be tricky for some reason. And nobody knows why. Until one day I was sitting chatting with somebody, which I love to do, by the way. I love chatting. And he came from Africa. He lived in Africa. And I, you know, my mind's always kind of thinking of Chris. I'm like, hey, do you ever see any African bullfrogs by you? Because I wanted an albino African bullfrog. How cool would that be? And I said, have you ever seen African bullfrog? He goes, yeah, you can. He goes, you mainly hear them when it's breeding time. You can just hear them. They're like lions out there. You know, they're loud croaks. He goes, and I said, well, have you ever seen an albino? He said, no. But he was no zoologist or anything. I mean, it was a guy that lived there, and he said, yeah, the people around my area, just below, I think he was just below the Congo. I forget what area he came from, but he goes, people around where he lived, they used to eat them. Apparently, they're good tasting. I mean, that just sickens me, but be that as it may. And I said, well, could you tell me anything about him? He goes, when you find them out in the wild, you'll see them sitting in the same spot. Like if you come across a big giant male underneath the bush and go there about 3 weeks later, he'll be sitting underneath that bush. I said, well, do they ever sit out in lakes? Like, do you ever have to go out in a lake and catch them? And he goes, no. He goes, usually you don't ever see them in the open water. He goes, it's only during when they're having their babies. He goes, you'll see the big males out in the water with the babies, you know. But he goes, for the most part, once that's done, you don't really ever see them out in the water. They're always underneath some shaded bush in moist soil. And I just thought that was interesting. I mean, the guy was no zoologist, but from what I was really hoping he had found an albino where I'd be like, let's book a plane trip. Let's go, you know. But no, he never saw an albino. So then, we got Mr. Pickles. I got him about the size of a quarter. Of course, you never know if they're male or female. We got lucky with Mr. Pickles. He's a big boy. He's no size of a quarter now. His head's even bigger than a quarter. And of course, the pet store tells you need this, that. You need a water dish. You need a heat light. You need some substrate, blah, blah, blah. And you just go with what the pet store guys say. Except for when they're babies, they're wandering around and they're constantly going in their water dish and carrying substrate from their enclosure into the water dish. So the water dish is dirty every day. No big deal. But every day you've got to clean the water dish. When you have 3 kids, it gets kind of tricky sometimes. And I thought, you know what? I go, it's kind of the conversation with the guy from Africa pops in my brain. And I'm like, well, if they aren't out in the open water all the time, and they're not even close to open water most of the time, they're sitting in moist soil. I wonder if I even need a water dish. So I decided to take out my water dish. And let's see. This is his enclosure. You can see I've got about 3 inches of 2.5, 3 inches of soil. It's just enough for his eyes to look over. He can kind of make a little. Usually I just kind of fluffed it all up when I take him out. I fluff it all up. But he'll make a spot over here. He'll sit there. And about 2 weeks later, he'll sit right there. And about 2 weeks later, he'll come back over here and make a spot there. Yeah. But it's not deep enough to where he can bury himself and I can't see what's going on. And the substrate, I don't know if you can see. I'd say the substrate's kind of saturated. You don't see any open water. But if I took and squeezed that, if I took a clump of that out and squeezed it, I bet you I could squeeze water out of it. So it's just really saturated. Not wet, just mega moist. Let's call it mega moist, quote unquote. And he, it's not like these frogs drink from a water bowl. They don't, like a bird. They absorb through their skin. And we all see the videos when I'm feeding them, when I take him out of his enclosure and put him in this feeding container, that he looks like a big balloon, These guys are always preparing for drought. That's what they do. Constantly preparing for drought. They're always keeping water. And so he never goes to the bathroom in his enclosure. It's like he's got to go to the bathroom in a water bowl. In my experience. Like I put him in here and he went pee. And usually every few times he'll go number 2. But he never goes pee or number 2 in his enclosure. So you get to thinking, after you talk to a bunch of cool people and they lost their frogs, and you start I lost my first frog. And so you start thinking, well, maybe why? Why could this be? And of course, first thing is that everybody has in common is they all have water bowls. And you think, okay, well, a couple things could go on with a water bowl. A little frog, they're going to the bathroom. And then they're coming out of the water bowl, walking all over their substrate, going back into the water bowl, come back out of the water bowl. So they're tracking all their urine or all their feces throughout their whole cage, all the time, every day. Me, I take him out. He goes to the bathroom in here. I put him back in. There's no poop or pee in his cage. Oh, did you just toot? Did you see that? He just tooted. Mr. Pickles, you making a bubble bath? Yeah, he's tooting again. Look at that. Tooting away with Mr. Pickles. So, that might add to it. I clean his enclosure once a month, maybe once every 2 months. He doesn't go to the bathroom in there. Never really stinks in there. And when and when he's done in here, I take him out. Like if he goes number 2 in there, I'll dump all that water, refill it, let him soak, and then put him in. And then once he's done, I spray all that out, let it dry out. There's no bacteria that can grow in there, because that's the number 2 thing that I always think about is, those plastic water bowls. You could, he's tooting again. Jiminy, Mr. Pickles. What if it's a bacteria that's growing in these water bowls? It's a stagnant water bowl that he's peeing in constantly, so there's food for bacteria. And if you ever went to a hospital when you were a kid, I'm 40 years old. But when I was a kid, there was always like a wishing well at a hospital. And you notice that almost all the hospitals are getting rid of these stagnant water features. And the reason is because people are getting sick from them. That they have usually concrete or have fiberglass or something that's kind of porous. And they're finding out people were getting sick from these stagnant water features. So you wonder if you do have a water bowl, you're going to want to maybe clean that sterilize it. Like, find some way of full sterilization every day. Get maybe multiple water bowls. And every day just put a new water bowl in, sterilize the old one. Because the random death syndrome seems to just happen to anybody at any time. I've had people who take great care of an enclosure, and I've got people that I've run across that they don't do nothing. Well, of course they're gonna, but some of them have really good luck with other animals, just not these. So then the third thing, so I guess one more thing on the bacteria water bowl is if you have a water feature in your enclosure. There's one other way too. It's ultraviolet sterilizing unit. It's an actual canister filter that you'd have to rig up somehow. Usually if you have an external water, you'd have to look them up online of what they look like, of how to incorporate them into your enclosure. But it's a canister filter that water has to go through, and there's an ultraviolet light in there. And it's not something that illuminates your enclosure. It's a light inside of a canister, because ultraviolet light can burn your eyes. But it sterilizes the water and not harm the frog. So that'd be another way you could do a water feature. That'd be safe. But then the third part that keeps coming up is these guys, you look at where they come from, it's not a jungle. They go through months of drought. These guys will hibernate through droughts. It's that droughty. And if anybody ever has seen, you dry out you take your pixie frog and let their substrate dry out, and you let their water bowl dry out, you'll see them make like a cocoon. Their bodies are made for instant protection against drought. And so to have them sitting in water 24/7, 365 days a year, they don't come from an area like that. So it's just an idea. I do it this way. I keep his substrate moist once a week. That's the only downfall, is once a week I have to give him a bath. And he goes to the bathroom in here, and then I put him back up in his enclosure, or I feed him and then I give him a bath. But I have to give him a bath. So I don't have standing water in his enclosure. This way works for me, Mr. Pickles. I took away his water feature. I took away his water bowl when he was a few months old. And he's turning 6 this year. He's 5 years old right now. Look at him. Just look at him. Of course, it's hard because the lighting's brutal, but he's bright. His eyes are all chipper. Look at his eyes. He's so pretty. He's just a beautiful color. He's very alert. And I know you guys, like I said before, you guys see him when I put him in the enclosure when I'm ready to do a feeding video, which I will do soon. I think he's got to go doo-doos. Look at this. He's just tooting away. We'll call him Mr. Tootser. Mr. Tootser. Mr. Oh, I think he's got to go doo-doo. Here we go. This is why we give him a bath. Oh. 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 Oh, here comes. Holy smokes. Look at this. Oh, my goodness. Oh, push it, Mr. Pickles. Push it real good. Holy cow. You're getting candid camera here, folks. Mr. Pickles time. See, but this is what I do. His enclosure's clean. He's not going back and forth out of a water bowl. Let's face it, we all work. And he can go to the bathroom, does this in his water bowl, and then climbs out, goes into his substrate. This goes all into his substrate. You know, bacteria doesn't need much to grow. It just needs some food, and that's plenty of food. So I just get sick when I see a random death syndrome. I just get sick. I love these guys. This is my buddy. Man, just to lose one of your best friends to some randomness just makes you sick. But this is my opinion. Everybody's going to do it their way. Just maybe, can all learn from each other and just incorporate it into our own little way that works for us. And so far, Mr. Pickles, this works for me. And Mr. Pickles seems very happy. So, thought I'd make this video. It's a lot easier for me to try to do it this way. Hopefully, I said everything I wanted to say. Ooh, look at that. He's done. He's like, yeah, look at me. I'm done. Look at that head. But next video, we'll make it fun. We'll feed him some. I can't feed live mice, obviously, which I don't have to do anyways. But try to find something to feed him watch him go ballistic. But he's always alert. He's always ready to eat. I mean, sometimes in the winter, he goes into winter mode, but... Oh! Goodness gracious. But I think we all have that. So, he's got another one coming out. Look at this. Got a turtle head poking out of a frog. Jiminy. But it's getting 17 minutes. Goodness gracious. Come on, Mr. Pickles. Do what you do. Get her done. Oof. You can smell it. That's what I like about these frogs. They're clean. His enclosure is clean. You open it up, doesn't smell. Look at him. He's going crazy. Oh, he got it out. Good job, Mr. Pickles. Congratulations. So there you go. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear it. Even the bad. If you want to yell at me, that's fine. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.